It is one of the nation's most intriguing cases.
Melissa Caddick vanished without a trace.
The missing woman over the past few weeks has been Melissa Caddick. She's a fraudster.
After months of probing her books, today laid bare her devious ways.
Hi, it's Melissa Caddick. How are you?
Are you appalled by your wife's actions? Do you have anything to say to all the victims?
Then, 3 months later, the grisly South Coast discovery, her foot and sand shoe washed ashore.
I don't know that I'd like to be in swimming at the moment.
The bombshell declaring the case was now a murder investigation.
Did you murder your wife?
It's so bizarre, isn't it, with the foot on the beach, which obviously you go through.
There are layers of bizarre.
There's so many conspiracies about what happened.
You have missing millions, you have a missing woman, and then you have a foot in a designer sports shoe.
I would caution against assuming that somebody is definitely deceased, because you can certainly survive without your foot.
Speculation that maybe she's staged a disappearance.
But this is a case where truth really is so much stranger than fiction.
Today I want to talk about Melissa Caddick. Now this case was actually recommended to me by a viewer, and I googled the name, and oh my god, this is so insane. So thank you to that viewer. Her name is Hardy Quinn. Thank you, Hardy Quinn. Melissa Caddick is an Australian conwoman who swindled people out of millions. Soon after she was exposed, she went missing, and then her foot washed up ashore. So did she end her own life, or did someone kill her? Or some people even think she cut off her leg, or had someone cut off her leg to make it look like she died, and really she's on the run. So I want to do what I usually do on my channel, which is I want to give you guys the facts. We'll discuss the theories, and then you can decide for yourself. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service where you can customize your favorite dishes. You can swap out one protein or sides for other sides. You can either upgrade to a more luxurious experience or add protein to veggie meals. So much variety, and it's so easy to adjust your plan or increase your order size to help with meal planning if you want more leftovers. And the step-by-step recipes are so easy to follow. Everything is pre-portioned, so very little waste, easy prep. They have veggie, pescatarian, fit and wholesome. It's also carbon neutral. Almost all the packaging is recyclable. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code Noor16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. That's going to HelloFresh.com to use code Noor16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. I love cooking, and I enjoy making homemade meals that are quick and easy, and I loved this tostada meal. Moment of truth. The crema with the Tex-Mex paste and the peppers and the cheese. Cheese pull. That is so good. So the whole thing started on February 25, 2021. It was in Sydney, Australia, when a group of campers found a shoe. And at first, it looked like a regular shoe, a sneaker. But then when they looked closer, they saw that there was a foot inside the shoe. So they reported this to authorities, and it was soon revealed that the foot belonged to Melissa Caddick.
There's a major development this morning in the mystery of missing Sydney businesswoman Melissa Caddick. Police confirming they have found partial human remains.
A shoe was located on the shoreline. Within that shoe were the remains of a human foot. That foot and the shoe, which matched the size and description of a shoe that Melissa Caddick was seen wearing during the execution of the ASIC search warrant. DNA from the foot was last night matched to a DNA sample from Melissa Caddick's toothbrush.
When authorities raided Melissa's home 3 months before her foot washed up, she was wearing those very shoes. The reason why she was raided was because she was a scammer, and it was alleged that she had misappropriated millions in investor funds. The morning after the raid, Melissa went missing. According to her son, at 5:30 a.m. he heard the door close and he assumed that his mom was going for a run, but she never came back. When Melissa left at 5:30 a.m., she left her cell phone behind, and authorities interpreted that to mean that she had intended to hurt herself.
The fact that she left personal belongings behind, we've always considered the possibility that she may have taken her own life.
Can you rule out foul play?
Look, at this point, we can't rule out anything. We've kept an open mind all the way along.
But other people believed, well, no, maybe she didn't want the phone to be able to trace her and she was going on the run, especially when we found out that there was something else that was missing other than Melissa, and that was pieces of artwork.
Something's missing from inside. 4 contemporary paintings listed on her insurance.
Investigators also want to find 4 valuable artworks which have disappeared from her Dover Heights home.
People speculated that Melissa took the paintings to sell them and have cash on the road, or sorry, I meant to say on the run. The other thing that was odd was that there was no CCTV footage of Melissa anywhere in the area of her home during the time she supposedly left the house. And turns out when Melissa's home was raided the day before she went missing, they took the CCTV footage and recording devices. The other thing that was weird was there was a lot of other homes nearby and other cameras, and she was not caught on any of those cameras.
The CCTV on these high-end neighbouring homes didn't capture anything at all, raising the question, did she even leave home that day?
The other thing too was there was a lot of conflicting report from experts about the shoe and how long the shoe was floating and what it meant. I mean, there was barnacles experts.
Now, you're not so sure about the timeline here because of the barnacles.
In my studies, I discovered that shoes are a very good place for barnacles and other sea creatures to live on. It's enough a time of 15 days for barnacles to settle on something and start growing. It's kind of odd that a shoe that has been stayed in the water for so long doesn't have anything attached on.
So the first issue was the timeline. Once they found the shoe, they were trying to figure out the timeline, and it seemed like at first they believed that she was on the run.
The strong possibility she was alive for weeks after being reported missing.
Because they expected more green algae type growth on the shoe if it was in the water from the minute she went missing or a few days after. And then they were trying to say that she was presumed dead. And then another expert came out and was like, no, we shouldn't presume that she's dead because obviously people can survive without their feet.
I would caution against assuming that somebody is definitely deceased because you can certainly survive without your foot.
If there was anybody capable of staging their own disappearance in such an elaborate way as this, she certainly would have the means to do that.
To understand what may have happened to Melissa, you need to understand who Melissa was and what Melissa did. And let me tell you, this story is weird, and that's a lot coming from someone with a tinfoil hat on their head. And I know it's aluminum foil, but that doesn't roll off the tongue the same, so I say tinfoil. But then in the comments, somebody's going to be like, actually, it's aluminum and you should really know your metals if you're going to have a YouTube channel. You see, before Melissa was a scammer, she was actually a scamee, if you will. And before that, before she was Melissa Caddick, she was Melissa Louise Grimley. And she lived a comfortable middle-class life, but she always wanted more, much more. According to her childhood friend Joanna, quote, she was conscious of fashion labels even back then, according to Joanna. She always had that desire to be better than she was. Even from primary school, she always aspired to be in the coolest group. And although Melissa would later claim to be a math whiz when she was scamming people, according to Joanna, she took the lowest level of math that was required to graduate, and she struggled with that. But yet, later on, she would claim to be this financial wizard and genius. After Melissa graduated from high school, she worked as a secretary, but she really hated the fact that she was a secretary. According to Joanna, she would get very, very cranky if you said, here's Melissa, she's a secretary, Joanna recalls, noting that her friend tended to give herself a superior title. She always felt that she was so much more than that. When Melissa was in her early 20s, something happened that would change the entire trajectory of her life. She was scammed. So this is what happened. She had a boyfriend, and she lived at her parents' home. And then all of a sudden, things started coming up missing at her parents' home. Money, items. And so her parents actually hired a private investigator. The private investigator found, I said that weird, the private investigator found that the boyfriend was actually a con man and that he preyed on young women and he would get close to them and steal pretty much whatever he could. Now, when Melissa was confronted with this, she didn't handle it well. It says here, when they confronted Melissa with this, she went berserk, recalls Joanna. She didn't believe them and ran away with him. Not long after, Melissa returned home. He'd maxed out her credit cards, Joanna says. He'd got what he wanted and didn't need her anymore. So when Melissa came back after he maxed out her credit cards, she had a mental breakdown. And this was in the 80s. By the time the 90s rolled around, Melissa was the one doing the scamming. She was working as an assistant in an investment house. And one of the other employees noticed that there was something weird going on where the invoices and the payments, there was a discrepancy there. And she was taking a much larger cut than she should have been taking. Basically, she was stealing and forging signatures on checks. So her boss confronts her. It says here, it became clear that Caddick had been forging her boss's signature, shown the checks. A look of, I'm done, crossed the then 27-year-old's face. Is there anything else I need to know? The investment chief asked with cold fury. Caddick shook her head. We can escalate it, or you can leave immediately, he offered. Caddick made a hasty departure, packing her personal belongings into her designer handbag. It was a clean exit. No lawyers, no police, no nothing, her former boss says. The reason why they didn't call the police is because all she stole was $2,000, which to them in that investment firm was a petty amount. It was like worth more to pursue it than to let it go. Plus she was going to leave and they were just happy to see her go. So they didn't do anything about it. But this is one of those things where maybe if they had done something about it and she did have this on her record, she wouldn't have been able to do the things she did afterwards. But hindsight is 20/20, as they say. So Melissa gets caught, but she gets away with it. And she decides, I'm going to reinvent myself. She gets a personal trainer. She decides, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to focus on my health. And when she's talking to this personal trainer, he tells her about another client of his who's a financial advisor. And long story short, he introduces Melissa to the financial advisor. Melissa ends up working with the financial advisor. Actually, he wanted to train someone, and so he takes her under his wing and trains her. And it wasn't long before Melissa started scamming there too. But this time she thought, she had a new method, and it involved whiteout, which in these articles in Australia, they call it Tipex. So basically, she would take the reports and she would white out what her fee was supposed to be, and then she would put a number like twice as much or whatever, and that's how she would scam. So she would take a cut and make it look official. Well, one of the other financial advisors was going over the paperwork and he noticed this and he confronted her with it, and she said, quote, "Oh, golly me, my secretary messed up here." That's a horrible accent. I'm so sorry to anyone Australian watching this. Her boss believed it was a genuine mistake and she got away with it again. But with each time Melissa got away with it, she would get bolder and more ruthless. Melissa lied a lot, like a lot. Just looking at her CV, which is basically her resume, you would see that the lies are outlandish. First of all, she didn't get accepted to university, but then she claimed she went to this university that she didn't go to. Then she claimed something outrageous. One of the things is that in her early 20s, she was managing daily cash flows for the entire NRMA group, which totaled 17 entities with a combined annual turnover in excess of $250 billion with a B dollars. And it's crazy because the gag is, right, she's not even able to get into university in this field. She was taking the most basic math classes and struggling with them. Yet she's claiming to manage billions of dollars, that she's this like young genius financial wizard, and it's all bullshit. During this time, Melissa gets married to her first husband, and she would end up ruining this guy's life. She gets married to a British guy. And so for a brief while, she's living in the UK. She convinces him to go to law school and work, and he does that. And before that, he was like working a working class job. But the spending didn't match what both of their jobs' incomes were. And so it says here, one friend recalls going to a dinner late at the newlyweds' beautifully renovated Paddington Terrace, which had luxury cars in the garage. Quote, I'm thinking to myself, effing hell, this just doesn't add up. She was a salaried financial planner and her husband was basically a backpacking Pom. I don't know what that means. The friend says, Caddick explained that her brother Adam was helping them out financially, and her brother Adam,
Who is Melissa to you?
My sister.
Is another one of her victims. It's really tragic, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. So now it's 2002. And Melissa's scam is going to go to another level. She ends up borrowing $750,000 to buy a stake in the business she worked for. And then, after doing that a year later, she's on the cover of this financial magazine. Okay, talk about fake it till you make it. She's giving advice on how to not get scammed by a financial advisor. Meanwhile, she's a financial advisor that's scamming, okay? It's like so like in your face, right? She cautioned against pyramid schemes and said, no matter how great a deal might look, it was vital for potential investors to check that their financial advisor was accredited, qualified, and ethical. 3 things that she is not. That same year, however, her incompetence, because she was incompetent, caught up with her. She was giving bad advice, and it was so bad that her insurance ended up getting revoked, and without her insurance, she couldn't practice. This is when she goes rogue, an independent financial advisor, and who she preyed on, what she did, made it even more ruthless, because she didn't go after wealthy people with disposable income where, yes, it sucks, it's horrible to lose money no matter how much money you have, but some people can survive losing money that to them is disposable. The people she preyed on were friends and family, and she took their life savings that they worked so hard for their entire lives. It was not disposable income at all, but yet she managed to convince them that she was this super successful person because, right, her spending was crazy. All the time her spending's crazy. So she was asked, like, how can you afford all this? And she said that when she left the company, she claimed she left with $86 million. You
could see from the clothes and the jewelry that she was spending money.
Big money.
And then she gave different stories and lies about that $86 million. One story was that these were her returns from the investments that she made because she's a genius. And then the other story she told was that there was some sort of sexual harassment thing that happened and she sued the firm and got $86 million. She tells one of her friends she wants to advise her and take her money because she wants to help. She's a piece of shit. She looks successful. She has all this money. And so they're thinking, wow, she knows what she's doing. Let me give her whatever little money I have so I can get more. Maybe I can retire early. Not only was Melissa a pathological liar, but she was also a kleptomaniac. Quote, one thing that stunned Caddick's circle was her petty larceny. We'd be at dinner and she would say, that's a beautiful butter knife. And then she'd steal it, says one long-term friend. At a meal at the Caddick's house one time, his wife remarked on the unusual salt and pepper shakers. Caddick replied that she'd stolen them from a Paddington restaurant. Okay, remember when I told you she ended up ruining her first husband's life? Here it comes. So what she ended up doing was she would lie all the time, right? So she lied and told people that he was a cheater, controlling, narcissistic, that he was just this horrible person. And then she also said that he didn't work when he did. She told one of her friends, can you believe it? He said he was working and he was driving and leaving the house to work and he wasn't even working. It was horrible, you know, and he was cheating and all this, when in reality, he was commuting super far to work every day, and she was the one who wasn't working because she was scamming, and she was the one having an affair because, oh yeah, turns out because she was bored and lonely when he was working, she ends up having an affair with her hairdresser. His name is Anthony Coletti. Her husband ends up finding out about the affair. A mutual friend sees them canoodling at a bar, and then he confronts her about it. He goes through her phone and he finds WhatsApp messages between her and Anthony that proves that they are having an affair. So when he confronts her about it, they get into this huge fight. He leaves to go stay with his family. And Melissa takes everything. When I say everything, I mean everything. She took his son. She took everything in the house. She wiped out the bank account. And then in the divorce, she ends up getting the house too. So he was left with nothing. Okay. And it was all her fault. And she was the one cheating. And she was the one lying. I mean, it's horrible. Melissa ends up going back to Sydney, Australia. Remember, that was all in the UK. So she goes back to Sydney, and it's 2012 now. And she is about to go even harder with her scamming ways. Now, remember her childhood friend, Joanna, the one I told you about earlier? Well, that is her first victim. First of all, Joanna was on disability and she was a single mother, but that didn't stop Melissa. Okay, listen to this. It says, her pitch to Joanna was that since Caddick was already making money buying and selling shares, it was no trouble to do it for the both of them. So I canceled my industry super and I gave her everything, Joanna says of her initial investment. So I had to Google that, and it's not exactly what I'm about to say, but an industry super in Australia would be something like a retirement, like maybe like when people say I cashed out my 401k. I think it's kind of like that. Basically her savings, right? It says here, Caddick didn't stop at the super. She later convinced Joanna to liquidate her share portfolio and hand the proceeds to Caddick to invest for her too. She subsequently ensnared the rest of Joanna's family. She didn't stop there. Melissa would pitch her services to pretty much anyone, all her friends, all her family, and then she would like mention it, and if they showed a little bit of interest, she'd be like, oh, but I'm fully booked, I'm busy. Booked and busy. And then like a week later she would call them.
Hi, that's Melissa Caddick. How are you?
I have an opening, I can fit you in. It was like these mind games, right? Like that she's exclusive and hard to get. So even though she's preying on them, they're kind of going after her. And then she was really weird about it too. Listen to this shit, okay? It says here, Caddick was constantly on the hunt for fresh prey. One victim, Faye Reed, recalls that whenever she and her wife Cheryl met Caddick at their home to go over their finances, Caddick repeatedly licked her lips. It was slow and constant. She would talk a little bit and then lick her lips. Talk a little bit and then lick her lips. I'm going, oh God, what's wrong with this woman? That shit is weird. That's just weird. It's just weird. Remember, Melissa was having an affair with the hairdresser, right? Well, they end up getting married, and her friends were really talking shit about them as a couple behind her back. He was like 11 years younger than her, and they called him, quote, her boy toy, and they would call him the handbag. So the wedding was lavish, as you can imagine. She had like 3 outfit changes. Her wedding dress was from Gucci, and their honeymoon was in Aspen, and it lasted an entire month. So none of this is a problem if you if you're earning your money, okay? If you are wealthy and you earn your money, or even if you inherited your money, whatever, and you want to buy a Gucci dress or whatever, 20 million dresses, go on honeymoon for 6 months, I don't give a shit. It's none of my business. The issue here is that she's using people's life savings to do this shit. She's blowing their life savings in a month on the most useless crap. That's the issue. Now, if you thought this was bad, this was nothing compared to what happened in 2014. Melissa managed to con her way into a $4 million loan from the National Bank of Australia. Okay? She ends up using this money to buy a home in Sydney, in this area. It's a very fancy area called Dover Heights. She buys a home there. This is the home where the raid happened. This is the home where she went missing from. This is the home. The thing is, she buys this super expensive home, and immediately after buying it, she leaves. She goes on vacation. It's just like, you know, when it's not your money and your heart doesn't hurt to spend it, it's like crazy. Like my heart would hurt to spend like that. I just bought this beautiful, expensive home. I would want to stay in it, right? No. She goes to New York for vacation. Then she went to Fiji. No expense was spared every step of the way. She was taking helicopters. She was flying private. She spent $54,000 in one shoe store. In one shoe store. Like, is it a whole shoe made of one solid diamond? I don't understand. She buys her new husband like a almost $400,000 Audi sports car, or is it Audi? And his license plate in this car, okay, said Two Paws, which is named after his production company that she bought him called Paws Productions. And he had an album that came out after Melissa went missing. The cover of the album was the same type of sneakers that her foot was found in, and the album was called Raid. And I'm gonna just give you a little touch. We'll talk more about that later, but I'm just gonna give you guys just a little taste of his glorious music. So this is the album. There's even a song called Melissa's Missing. Okay, listen to this shit.
Heights mother Melissa Caddick went for an early morning run, but she never came home.
Intelligence artificial.
This is his latest single.
Investigation. Artificial. Just waiting for a coroner's report to tell me something that I already know. My wife died as a direct result of an ASIC investigation. Corporate watchdog. I was just doing my job.
What is up with me and these like music from these cases and whatever? Remember when I was really into that one cult song? Anyway, something's wrong with me, but the beat is not bad. He starts this production company. It's not that successful at the time. He has all these weird business ventures that don't go anywhere. Like they had an aquarium built in the house for him to start breeding prawns, and that didn't go anywhere. And anyway, so while that's going on though, the walls are starting to close in on Melissa. She had a couple of close calls. One of her investors was going through a divorce, and he started asking about his money. Melissa panicked, okay? She ends up liquidating all of his assets, even though he didn't ask her to, and she just gives him his money back. The next close call, however, was the beginning of the end for Melissa. It was September 2019. She had an investor that she was preying on, but his wife, she was suspicious. She had questions. So she started asking questions, and it kind of freaked Melissa out. She ends up coming up with this lie. She tells him, my husband's cousin died. I have to go to the funeral. She goes to the funeral, and then she never contacts them again. She doesn't return their calls. She just disappears. So this was really weird. And the wife that was already asking questions, she felt like she wanted to dig even deeper now. And when she did, she found out that Melissa never actually had a license that you need to provide financial services. She was using another financial advisor's license. So she ends up reporting this anonymously to ASIC. ASIC is the Australian Securities and Investments Commission. It's like a corporate watchdog. So she anonymously reports this, that this person is using someone else's number, blah, blah, blah. Nothing actually happens. I don't know why, but nothing happens. But then Melissa messed up. She sent a photo of her dog on her lap, okay, to one of her victims, an investor that she was scamming. At the time, the investor didn't think anything of it, but then later on, she zooms in on the photo, and that's when she saw something written on the notepad near like where the dog is. And it was written there that Melissa's average daily profit was $46,000. Profit daily. $46,000. Now, given the amount that was being invested, it didn't really make sense. A month after this photo was taken, there was another anonymous complaint to ASIC. Now ASIC decides to take action because it's like there's two complaints. It says here, concerned that Caddick might get wind that they were onto her, they decided to make a preemptive strike. Thus, on November 10th, 2020, they made an urgent application to the federal court to freeze her assets and seize her passport. The application was granted, and the following day, the Australian Federal Police raided Caddick's home in Wallangra Road, Dover Heights. So let's talk about the raid. It happened at 6 a.m. on November 11th. Everyone was surprised. It was a raid. No one was expecting her. Her teenage son was at home, as was her husband, Anthony.
Overcome with panic, an accused fraudster watches on as investigators raid her clifftop home. Hours later, she was gone.
By the time the raid had taken place, it was alleged that Melissa stole $30 million from 60 people. And only $7 million had been returned to investors. So there was $23 million that was completely unaccounted for. As the investigation continued, the depths of Melissa's deceptions was revealed. Literally, every single document was fake. She didn't even know how to use the software that was common in the industry. Instead, she was using Microsoft Excel to create fake documents. She would copy and paste logos from like Google image search to make these fake documents with fake account numbers. Everything was fake except for the Gucci wasn't fake, the diamonds weren't fake, the sports car weren't fake. The other thing that's weird too is the amount of documentation that she had of her stealing. One of the investigators was like, I've never seen anyone like record their crimes so meticulously.
The picture that you can draw out of these documents is simply that there's been a gigantic fraud and that investors' money has been used for personal benefits. This case started on the 8th of September 2020 and she disappeared on the 12th of November. She had therefore something like good 2 months in which to ponder about what her next steps were going to be.
Once the raid was over and the authorities left, there's supposed to be apparently 14 hours where the authorities are gone and Melissa supposedly walks out of that home at 5:30 a.m. according to her son. Okay, 14 hours. In this 14 hours, we don't really know what happened. It's kind of, the official stories kind of don't make sense. According to Melissa's husband, Anthony Coletti, in those 14 hours between when the raid was over and when Melissa supposedly went missing, they didn't talk about the raid at all, which many people find extremely hard to believe. Then, in addition to that, once she supposedly went missing, Anthony didn't notify police for 30 hours, so over a day. So this is something that makes people go like, what? Hold on, you guys didn't talk about it? Like somebody comes and raids your home and all this police and you guys didn't talk about it. And then she just vanishes and the paintings vanish and then you don't call police for 30 hours. It sounds like you guys made a plan and gave her a head start. It's what it sounds like. I did a video about this crazy phenomenon and they reference it in this case where the video I made, I'll link it below, it was titled something along the lines of why do dismembered feet keep washing up ashore in Washington and Canada? Well, it turns out, long story short, there's a lot of theories, but the official reason is that the ankle is a place that naturally kind of comes apart when you've been soaking in water and decomposing. And then sneakers, they're very buoyant, right? They float. And so that combination of factors is what is allowing these feet to keep showing up dismembered in sneakers. Okay. So in addition to Melissa's foot, 2 other body parts washed up ashore.
The mystery of what happened to Sydney woman Melissa Caddick has intensified following the grisly discovery of a second body part.
And washed up on the shore, more human remains.
There was a mass of fairly bleached substance that had a really peculiar stench to it.
And police believe DNA testing will match them to the 49-year-old.
Testing has determined flesh, including a belly button, that washed up on Mollymook are human, but from a man.
So, I mean, you couldn't write about this stuff.
But then it turns out they weren't Melissa's body parts. So with Melissa presumed dead, several things happened. First, there was a funeral. Not a lot of people attended. You can imagine why. So they had a little funeral, and then also all the criminal charges were dropped. But that was done so that a civil case could start, so that the people who were owed money could have a chance of getting their money back. It opened up a whole can of worms because Anthony Coletti came out And he didn't say what people wanted him to say.
I've learnt in life there are more important things than cars. They can be replaced.
His next car was recently trashed by a garbage truck.
I'm not ashamed or embarrassed.
Keen to set the record straight after being snapped in the cheaper rental.
Anthony Coletti, leaving the federal court, left to fight for a slice of the sale of the family home at Dover Heights.
A barrister representing the mother of one dropped a bombshell, declaring the case was now a murder investigation.
There's only one person that's turned me into a victim, and it's not Melissa.
You're talking about the investigators?
Yeah.
He ended up threatening one of the investigators.
The husband of Sydney conwoman Melissa Caddick is now in legal trouble of his own. Anthony Coletti is accused of intimidating the lead investigator in his late wife's case through text messages, social media comments and song.
You can't hide behind your government job forever. You might get me a snake or a rat and call it Isabella. I'll buy the ugliest thing I can find.
Several songs mention ASIC and Miss Allen directly.
She's made my life very uncomfortable. So, can I feel sorry for her? No. I just take one day at a time, you know? I'll just roll with the punches.
Coletti's accused of threatening behaviour and in this 7 News Spotlight interview blaming ASIC for Melissa's death.
The mystery into her disappearance has almost been matched by the intrigue surrounding the activities of the corporate watchdog.
Do you feel in any way like you've taken it a bit far?
I don't. If she feels threatened, then I'm sorry for that.
He made a lot of accusations, I'll tell you. He said, the reason there is no proof of Melissa's disappearance is because Isabella Allen removed my CCTV recorder from my premises, leaving it both unsecured and unprotected. Ms. Allen abused her position of power. She was dehumanizing Melissa in front of her son while the AFP were upstairs enjoying our view. When he tried to tell her that he thinks that his wife may be dead, that Ms. Allen laughed at him. I guess she thought that Melissa was on the run. I recommend you guys enjoy the fullness of his album, but I'll give you a little bit more.
ASIC investigation. IA. Intelligence. Artificial.
No food, no
judge, jury, and executioner.
Just a young girl. Manslaughter and executioner.
Corporate watchdog.
ASIC negligence.
So in addition to all of this, Anthony made even more outlandish claims. He came out and he was like, Melissa didn't steal anything from anyone. She was murdered. She was set up. 30 people knew about the raid before it was going to happen, and they're all suspects, and the ASIC is involved because they took the CCTV footage. He then tries to prevent the victims of the crime from getting any of the assets. He says he wants the house and that he needs the house because he has sole custody of Melissa's son, and his son lives in the house with him, and how's he going to take care of him? Then he says he only has $1.95 in his account because of COVID. You know, he was a hairdresser, and so the lockdown didn't allow him to work, and then he was the primary caregiver for his son, and he had to do the household duties. So he said he doesn't have any income. And then he started saying he wanted things, items that were purchased with stolen money. He wanted the house. He wanted the apartment that she bought her parents, because guess what? Melissa also scammed her parents, her own parents. She scammed them. And so like creditors were trying to take the apartment that they thought they bought, but really the money they spent for that apartment, she spent on crazy things like a $400,000 ring. He was now claiming the parents' house, the house in Dover Heights, the car, various shares of the businesses worth $7 million. He wanted 5 paintings. He wanted the Gucci wedding dress. He wanted an 18-karat white gold cross valued at $8,360. He wanted 18-karat white gold onyx cufflinks valued at $5,600. He wanted an 18-karat white gold and sapphire ring valued at $10,450 and an 18-karat white gold skull pendant worth $6,300. He wanted a diamond ring worth $33,960 and his wedding band, which I've never heard of a men's wedding band costing $26,500. Was it like full diamond? I don't know. Then other people started coming up, like the parents. They said, you know, we were promised this home until we died, like we have nowhere to go.
Caddick's parents also left high and dry in the home they're likely to lose.
We need the home. Her brother came out and was like, she scammed me too.
How much money did you give? $2 million. Who is Melissa to you?
My sister.
And so like everyone's trying to get what they can, and they're probably all going to end up with crumbs if they're lucky. Those are the facts. Now let's discuss the theory. So there are several. So let's start with the official story, which is that she killed herself. Now, it's not hard to believe given the facade, given who she scammed, right? She didn't just scam random people. She scammed her mom, her dad, her brother, her cousins, her uncles, her childhood best friend, her trainer, her employees. I mean, I swear, I bet you, if her son was old enough and she got away with it long enough, she would have scammed her own son. When all this gets uncovered and your whole entire facade is crumbling, you're a thief and you stole from people who were your friends and family and you took their life savings, how could she face them after that? How could she face anyone after that? So was there a reason for her to do it? Yes. She wanted to escape justice. There were areas, cliffs, that she could have walked to when she left in the wee hours of the morning after the raid. You know, maybe for 14 hours she spiraled and she was like, I can't face this, like this, it's over. It's over. Maybe she decided to leave while everyone was sleeping and she went to a cliff. Maybe she jumped. Maybe she died on impact. Maybe she drowned. Then with the currents and the decomposition, her foot detached and washes up on shore 3 months later. But then people go, okay, well, what about the artwork? What's up with the artwork? Which brings me to the she's on the run theory. Okay, so let's try to flesh this out. So let's say she decided, I'm gonna go on the run and I'm gonna fake my death. So she decides to take this artwork because she can sell it on the black market, maybe get some cash for it, and she lives off this cash. Okay. Then she has a lot of money. She can hire some mafioso type, I don't know, black market surgeon who is going to make it look like her foot came out and what do they do? Decompose it in water for 3 months and then like put it in the shoe and then make it drift over here, like, you know, and then it's like, okay, well, why weren't there barnacles on it? Why wasn't there stuff? Some people said, well, the material of the shoe, they were pretty rare shoe and not every material. Barnacles don't attach to every type of shoe. And then also this type of marine life, it depends on the weather. This happened in November. It was cold. Maybe those things weren't growing at the time. And it was found in February. So it was like very cold, you know. During winter is when this happened. So that could explain why there's no growth on the shoes, but yet the foot is decomposed. So although in theory it seems plausible, I feel like in practice, although not impossible, it seems less likely than her killing herself. All right. So that's one thing. Then the other theory is, okay, well, maybe she is dead, but maybe someone did it. Okay. And oh yeah, speaking about the paintings, one more thing I wanted to say. Some people think that maybe she didn't take the paintings, but maybe she told her husband, like, listen, they're going to take everything. Take these paintings. This is where you can sell them so that you can take care of my son in case something happens to me, in case I go to jail. And then she decides to kill herself. That's possible too. Maybe Anthony knows where the paintings are. Especially because he was like, we didn't talk about the raid. We didn't talk about anything for 14 hours. Then he didn't report her for 30 hours. Maybe he was doing things, right? Giving her a head start. Or maybe he was selling the paintings, moving money around. I don't know. Some people think that that could also explain where the paintings are. So the other thing too is the people bring the paintings up in the murder theory as well. Maybe she took those paintings to pay someone off. Maybe there was someone that she screwed over who was like, listen, they're gonna come and take the assets. I need to get my shit now. Bring me this amount of money. And she panicked and she said, okay, I'm gonna take the paintings and I'm gonna give you to them. You can sell those paintings. And then maybe that person pushed her off a cliff or something. I don't know, but this is a theory that people mention. And that brings me to the two kind of like far-fetched theories that I found. Okay, the first one is witness protection theory. Maybe during the raid, Melissa confessed to everything and in an effort to save herself, threw someone else under the bus. Maybe she snitched to get into witness protection, and that this whole elaborate thing was to cover up, you know, fake her death, and then she can go into hiding. I don't know. Do with that what you will. And the last one is an accident of some sort. Like maybe she slipped and fell. Maybe she wasn't actually going to kill herself, but she slipped and fell, which it's not impossible, but I mean, like, I'm more likely to incline, I don't know what the hell I was trying to say there, that she jumped, then she slipped and fell. Because why would you just go there and just to look at 5:30 in the morning with paintings or whatever? Maybe she didn't take them, but like, I don't know, maybe, but I feel like either she's dead or she's on the run. And if she's on the run and she had her foot cut off and stuff, that would be the most elaborate, insane thing. But judging from her history, she does a lot of elaborate and insane things. So although not likely in my personal opinion, it's not impossible. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed researching it. I really did. And I want to leave you with something. Some of you might know what I'm going to leave you with. But this is a song from the Pause Off album by Anthony Coletti called Good Morning. And I like how it starts with snoring, like the kind in the old school cartoons where they go shoo, shoo. I just think it's so good.
Yeah, they've done something wrong. Oh, a couple of people have told me. Yeah. Okay, you ready, guys? We're gonna get them, and then I'm gonna go on 2 weeks holiday.
A reenactment of the raid.
Luxury items, clothes. You are not allowed to have a lawyer present. But I'm gonna climb the corporate ladder for sure.
Oh God, it's so bad. It's so bad. Oh my God. Anyway, so I'm gonna leave you with that. I encourage you to do your own listening afterwards if your ears need to start bleeding. That's a good way to do it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!